Welcome, everyone. Friday, the stream. Welcome here to Open Topic Friday on this channel, A Flawed Man of God. I am your host, Stuart Davis. I am a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. Not a pastor, not a biblical scholar, haven't been to seminary. Not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm here to do is talk about God, talk about Jesus, talk about the Holy Spirit, talk about Christianity, talk about the Bible, talk about a wide variety of Christian topics, issues, current events, and give you my perspective of them, one that I think is reflective of your average Christian guy. Been a Christian all my life, 40 years non-denominational Protestant. Don't subscribe to any particular doctrine or denomination. I'm just in the Word daily, trying to make sense of it and do a better job day in and day out. Sometimes I'll get it right, sometimes I'll get it wrong, but either way, no matter how it lands, I'll be on here giving you my honest takes whenever I stream. So, if you're somebody who is new to the faith, you're somebody searching out answers, wondering what all this Christian stuff has, what Christianity has to do with anything, wondering about Jesus, maybe there's a voice in the back of your mind wondering if there's more to life than just your existence here on earth. To that I say, welcome to the show. I hope you get something out of this. Hopefully, I can give you some sort of perspective and influence, insights into Christianity from a layperson perspective. You know, the guy that you're going to meet who's going to shake your hand when you walk into a church, hopefully greet you and make you feel more at home in a relaxed setting, comfortable, and open for questions. Ask away, and hopefully, what you get out of this show springboards you into a relationship with God. And by all means, ask away. If you are already a Christian and you just enjoy Christian topics and conversations, welcome as well. Glad to have you here. We got a great group of folks coming in, night in and night out. We run it very similar to a Wednesday night study group or a Sunday school. And no matter where you land in your faith, whether you are just searching it out, looking for answers, or if you're already a Christian, well established and smarter than me, we have a great chat here. Folks come in night and night out, and I encourage you to join into that. Join in that chat, participate, be part of the show. The show is very much, the chat is very much part of the show. Be part of the show. And we are a small enough community that if you do type away or whatever you're thinking, I'll read it. Maybe you have some insights on what we're discussing. Maybe you think I'm doing things wrong. Maybe you disagree with my opinion. Maybe you think I'm great. Maybe you've got a different way of looking at things that would be helpful. I'm always open to seeing that. Please make it known. If you just want to listen, that's fine. But again, I think you get more out of it if you talk to us. And with that said, welcome to Friday, everybody. We are at the end of the week, the day that so many of us are looking forward to. I certainly am. I've got a few things on my docket for this weekend. My son's soccer game has been rained out, unfortunately, so I don't get to watch him play. One of the joys of my life, and it is being deprived. I'm being deprived of it. But you deal with what you have to, and that's fine. That's fine. I've got things to do. I certainly have things to do. And but I am actually looking forward to relax a little bit, because when you go on a road trip and you're spending a lot of time past your bedtime out with friends doing things, I mean, it's fun, but it also wears on you a little bit. So it'd be nice to have a weekend to reset, just relax, have very little to do, get just enough accomplished to be proud of yourself. And then hit the ground running on Monday, wishing that you had more time. But how's everybody doing today? Dresden here in the chat first, Nico coming in second, and Mr. Felty coming in while I was doing my opening to the show. Hope you guys are doing all right. It's Open Topic Friday. And I was thinking about doing Disney. I think we might hold off on Disney until just a little bit more information gets out there. Maybe we'll chase it down tomorrow. Or maybe we'll just chase down whatever we have next week. But something popped up on the Twitter feed that had been kind of on my mind, and this gave me something to run with. So I was going to go with that tonight. So we're going to go with Tucker Carlson, because there have been some rumblings about there being a faith aspect to everything that's going on right now. Nico said, I got finals in 2 weeks, so it's going to be hella weekend for the next 2. Hey, you got this, Nico. You're inquisitive. You seem intelligent. I'm sure that that you, if you put your mind to the studying or do whatever it is you need to prepare, you'll be all right, buddy. And I'm certain everybody in the chat is hoping for your success. I certainly am. So go and get it. Pay attention the next 2 weeks. You don't need to be in on these streams if time is better spent preparing for that. You can always catch this show on the back end if it's important to you. Sorry, guys, I had pizza and I'm super thirsty, so I'm going to be drinking a lot. Nico says, speaking of faith, Crowder seems to be having a crisis with his and his family. I am specifically veering away from that, at least for the time being, because it looks like it's going to get ugly. If it may perhaps uglier than it already is. And I don't follow Crowder all that much. He says some things that I agree with sometimes, but when you talk about issues at home and family issues, domestic relationships, and how people interact, I mean, unless there's an overarching matter of the faith, it's really kind of, I really don't feel comfortable talking about it, right? This isn't something that's spilling into a church and causing all sorts of controversy. This isn't something that's real. I mean, Christian Twitter is talking about it a lot, but Crowder's not I don't know if Crowder believes in God at all. I don't watch his show, so I have no idea what his faith is. I know that he has similar beliefs that I do as far as politically, but I don't know what his faith is. However, you always hope. I mean, whether it's Crowder, whether it's your best friend who doesn't believe, or Susan Sarandon or some other jackass in Hollywood, who everything out of their mouth is condescending to us. You hope they all discover faith. They all discover Jesus. Truly discover Jesus, not just say that and not do the superficial, go to church and, oh yeah, Jesus is love and everything. Everybody needs to love everybody. Not that, but like true, deep faith and understanding. We hope they all find that. But what Crowder's going through right now, whether he is deserving of this, or whether not, or whether it's a little bit of the both, I don't know. I haven't, and I haven't investigated it all. I'm just seeing things pop up, and social media is not always the best place to get the true take on what's going on. MR, been waiting for you to get here. I'll talk about you in a second. But to suffice it to say, pray for the kids. Pray for Crowder. Pray for his wife that, you know, because these are nasty things. Pray for the kids because it sucks. This always sucks. And I don't know. I'm not a kid. I'm not a child of divorce. All of my cousins are. Every single one of my cousins has divorced parents. On my, I take that back. On my mom's side. Not on my dad's side. They definitely aren't. But on my mom's side, every single one of my 12 cousins, their parents got divorced. Um, it's not fun. Some of you may have experienced this as a kid. Now, imagine that being played out on the national stage. Everybody's going to talk about how terrible a person your father is. Everybody then, or half of the country is going to talk about how terrible of a person your father is. Half of the country is going to talk about how bad of a person your mother is. It's not going to be. It's not something to be enjoyed. And then there's going to be, the fact that, you know, it's your parents. And there's money, and there's a lot of money, which means there's a lot of lawyers, and means it's just going to be a lot of crap going on. When stuff like this happens, it's important for us to fall back on God. It's important for us to remember that He's there, and hopefully, all of them have that. I worry that they don't, but we won't. That at least at the moment, that's really just going to be my take on things and why I'm not making it um, why I'm not making it a topic. I touched on that briefly, Nico, in the beginning of the week because that's when that stuff was starting to come out. I know some video released on from the doorbell. I listened to a little bit of it. You can't get everything out of a video. So again, just pray for the people involved. And let's try not to come to conclusions on either side and let things work themselves out that way. These are times where it'd be nice for people to just let others have a private life. But some people live for that. Anyway, so that being said, it is. Nico says on Tucker's side, isn't he still in contract with Fox still, or is he totally separated from Fox now? We're going to get into that a little bit because what I'm reading, they still have the contract. So maybe they fired him, but they're still paying him. I don't know. Maybe we'll look into that a little bit, and maybe some of you guys can do some research and see if y'all can find that out as well, if you are able to. MR, how is it going, buddy? Look, I've talked about it a little bit, but I haven't been able to say it. But I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to meet up with you at Road Rage in Philly. I think around the time you were getting there, because it sounded like you guys were getting there either right on time or maybe a little bit after the show started. But Nick was hanging out at our table, and we were talking a little bit. People were coming up, buying him drinks, and shaking his hand. Everybody's happy to see him and whatnot. But and then I wasn't paying 100% attention to my phone until you told me, "Oh, we can't they won't let us downstairs," which was lame. Lame that they wouldn't let you. especially because there's a bar down there. I guess you guys had a bar too, but it wasn't this bar. And I actually went up on the second level when I asked you where you were at. I was on the second level, and I was just kind of looking around, but I couldn't find you. I didn't know what you look like anyway. But I stayed up there for a little bit until somebody, one of the bartender, asked me how I was doing, and I had the wrong color bracelet on, so I didn't want him to kick me out and yell at me. But I should have just said, "Hey, listen to my look, chill, dude. I'm waiting for my buddy." Um, but I'm sorry we missed that, and hopefully we can get together at another time. If you're in Jersey, I suppose it's not too big of a drive for you. So we'll talk about that later. I will say, MR and I were talking about the beginning of the show because we were both at the same show. Like I said, Nick did a great job. Dick was funny. The comedians at the beginning were not. Some folks liked the opening act. I didn't. It was definitely targeting Faith. So obviously, in a very negative way. So I didn't particularly care for it. Not my brand of humor. I thought it was very irreverent to something I feel is sacred. That guy needs prayers too. I mean, he was definitely throwing caution to the wind out there, but I worry sometimes that's a sign of a broken personality. But glad your weekend. Hopefully, your weekend is winding down, and you were able to hang out with us. Matt Felty, kind of like Sports Nico, he's talking about the Tucker thing. They have a term contract, so get paid but don't play. If they didn't meet their obligations, he'd be free to do whatever. Okay, so maybe you already know right there. Tucker's just getting paid to do nothing, which is what Fox wants him to do because he's relevant right now, to the point where I heard that I think I heard that at some point this week, the 8:00 slot was down 2/3 of its viewers. That's almost as much as people watching CNN. Nick was talking about it on his show, I think Wednesday, when he came out and talked about, I think when he was talking about that. Tucker is bigger than Fox right now. Fox took a very big hit between getting rid of O'Reilly. O'Reilly at his zenith was bigger than Fox. Hannity's been there forever, but Hannity, you can tell, is probably a yes man. He's going to toe the corporate line. He's going to go just far enough. He knows where his leash ends, right? He's the dog that knows where his leash ends. This is how I see it anyway. Not necessarily true. I don't have any inside knowledge or anything, but this is just the impressions that I get. He's in there forever. I personally don't think Hannity is a great personality. Look, my lights are dying in the background. I don't think that Hannity is a great personality. He's grating. He doesn't interview people very well. He's got, I don't know. He comes off very fake, very put on. Not to say that he doesn't necessarily believe in what he says, but his delivery just feels plastic. And manufactured like Brett Baer's hair. So, but when O'Reilly left and that whole thing, then you had the Megyn Kelly thing happen, which was just weird. The way they handled Trump and COVID, it's just been kind of a falling, tumbling. They don't. Again, they feel like the brand is bigger than the personalities, and the brand gives the platform to the personalities, but the personalities are what bring the people in. And Tucker coming on the scene the way he did, a lot of folks like myself were thinking, with Rush Limbaugh having his bout with cancer, and as things, many of us, like I said, I'm a Rush Limbaugh fan. I grew up on him. I liked his positive way of approaching things. I think that he should have been more vocal about his faith. He did get that way. Um, he did get more so towards the end of his broadcasting, and he had his talk about God near the end was great. I thought he should have done that a little bit more throughout his broadcasting, but maybe because of the bombastic nature, maybe he didn't think it was appropriate. Maybe he wanted his ideas to stand on their own. I don't know. He had his own motivations. But as somebody who was a fan of Rush and seeing that there was going to be a gaping hole in radio when he left, because really nobody else was worth listening to. Glenn Beck was in the early 2000s, and then he got weird after the '08 election, and he's still weird. He's still a weirdo. Um, Michael Savage, another weirdo. I'm trying to think of who else. Mark Levin he's like Hannity to me. He's like Hannity to me. Now, a lot of these people, they feel like they don't feel as genuine. But Tucker came on, and with his monologues and his way of talking and his way of, it was very much a kind of a Gen X version of the baby boomer rush, or maybe even a late Gen X or an Xennial way of approaching things. That was his style of humor, and he wasn't afraid to talk about things. So a lot of folks thought he was going to take Rush's spot. Of course, with Rush leaving AM radio, I don't know if AM radio has anything left in it. A lot of people are going to where what AM radio I think was always destined to come into to do with internet, and that is become part of the internet. With streaming services and all that, perfect place to thrive, because it's even more so than radio. A lot of this is a meritocracy. Of course, you have to worry about algorithms and that kind of stuff, but people aren't going to listen to stuff that they don't want to listen to. And you can fake sub numbers and view accounts and whatnot, but ultimately, if you make something that people want to watch, they'll watch it, and they'll go to some links to go watch it, like people moving over to Rumble. You'll see more and more content like that. So, anyways, I don't know where I was going with this. We were talking about Tucker, but that's what I thought was interesting about Tucker at the onset. Now, what happened recently, we've had a couple of things happen. Tucker has exploded on Fox. We have a lawsuit that got settled for a lot of money, a lot of money. And people are focusing on that aspect, and that aspect might be the real reason, right? But there's some other people who pointed to something also that happened recently, and I wanted to kind of get into that as well. Before I do that, I'm going to check up in the chat. So, I said, Nico said, that actually sounds malicious or intended to silence Tucker. He can't do his Fox show, but he also can't do his independent media. Look, that's the stuff those are the chances you take when you are a media personality and you're signing these contracts. So, yeah, Nico says, yep, pray for Crowder. I used to listen to Crowder, and it's kind of sad about it. I mean, again, people are human. these big personalities, they might have big ideas about what works. That doesn't mean that they always apply them. We're reading right now in the Bible, the past week, have been reading about Solomon. Solomon is the wisest man that ever is, was, and ever will be, right? He still screws up royally. He writes an entire book in the Bible about it. With advice that just, hey, guys, take it from me. Don't make these mistakes. So people are going to make these stuff, but just hope that they weather this storm and they come out stronger on the end, and they understand that God wants them to give their faith to Him. Mr. Scott J87, welcome. Long time no see. Glad to have you here. MR said probably has a non-compete for network broadcasting. MR, it's okay. I just wanted to put that out there. Mr. Scott says, I haven't listened to Crowder since Not Gay Jared left. I still don't know. I don't know that meta. I've never listened to his show except for I think I caught a clip when Nick called in. Like I said, I usually support my buddy by tuning in to big places when he shows up. I didn't watch his Tim Casto either. Nernea says he doesn't believe MR is real. He might not be. MR said, "On my show, in my opinion, the show was booty, not Nick. I'll send a pic on the Discord." I sent my pic. This is me here. Dick the man rubbed me wrong. Like I said, he's got some really weird takes, right? And I feel like it's almost like freedom of speech is the hill he's going to die on. Like that's his hill. It needs to be there. And that's like I think in some respects that's a noble cause, but you got to remember who's going to be on that hill with you might not be some of the people that I really think need to be up there. I'm not an absolutist when it comes to freedom of speech. I think a lot of his lolly and lolly stuff is awfully bad. And there you go. Nernea says, how do I know it isn't chat GPT generated MR? Is this like, Mom, can we have MR? No, we have MR at home. MR at home is chat GPT. Have a trophy. MR gets a trophy. A lot of the good Nico saying a lot of the good members like Bill, the lawyer, or the Bill lawyer or quarterback Garrett left, and I stopped watching. Have Stu ask me a question about the venue that I'd have to have been there. When you walked into the entrance of the building, how many flights of stairs did you have to walk up to get to your seats? When you walked into the main building, when you walked into there, how many flights of stairs up did you had to walk to get to the theater? There's your question. Matt Felsley, just my 2 cents of logic on their contract. I don't know for sure. It's okay. I've heard something like that. Ford's dropping AM radio from passenger vehicles. I don't listen to AM anymore. I wasn't literally listening to AM when Rush was still on there. I had an app on my phone for AM or for talk radio, and I listened to that. And Nico says that's not the MR we wished, but it's not the MR that we deserve, but the one that we needed. Anyway. All right, so getting back to things, and while MR chews on that question I asked him, um, there were some rumblings, and this happened, and I saw the clip before he got the announcement made he was gotten fired. Tucker made some religious claims, and there were some murmurings that maybe that had something to do with him losing his job. Odd thing to fire like your main personality for. And I'm not saying maybe this wasn't even the main reason. It might have been an underlying cause, however, that made the other stuff perhaps palatable, or the other reasons to get rid of him easier to consider. So, a guy on Twitter that I follow, and this guy's kind of a jackass as well. He doesn't like, look, his name's Terry Mattingly. He's on this, he posts on a website called Get Religion. He thinks anybody who liked Trump in the slightest is an idiot. He is obsessed with that, and he's a friend of David French. None of these are accolades that are worth a share. These are I'm trying to think of, none of these are redeeming qualities. And he links to a guy named Rod Dreher. I think that's how you say his name. Let's see. Can you still see it? There we go. Oh, I think that the suit by the Dominion is definitely that definitely could have been the only reason they got rid of him. But let's look at this theory, because it kind of touches on the theme of this show. And I haven't listened to all that speech, but what I've heard was great. I mean, this is the part of Tucker that I really like. And we're going to get into that speech because he made a very funny comment as well. But let's see. Rod Dreher, this is from Terry Mattingly. He's going to read this, and we're gonna comment on this. So, I have shared Get Religion articles before, and I have had a copyright strike made against it before. That one was the one I did about the Methodist Church splitting between the Global and the United Methodist Churches. And I got a copyright strike on it. And I don't know if it came from him or if it came from the Methodist Church, because I shared a video that had been inlaid in that in his article. I don't know who made the copyright claim. I don't care. So I'm going to link this, I think, at some point, and we're going to read and we're going to talk about it. If he copyright strikes me, I don't care, because I'm not monetized. So suck it. Anyway, so this is the pot. What role did God talk play in Tucker Carlson's fall at Fox News? Good question, by Terry Mattingly. Rod, live not by lies, Dreher, whatever that means, has shared the following anecdote many times, but it's especially interesting that he used it once again in his Substack post, Tucker fired because of religion. This might be worth following as well. But what I read on Dreher's Twitter when he shared the link is that the first part of this is free, and then the rest of it's behind a paywall. So, MR, there's merch girls. That was 80s Girl was the tall gal, and the short gal was Lady Rackets, just so you know. Um, I am using it to open this podcast because this week's Crossroads, blah, blah, whatever. My theory is that Carlson is a conservative populist as opposed to being a DC Beltway Republican, something uh, that Mattingly very much is, and that his religious beliefs, especially after he stopped drinking, are part of that mix. This created tension with the dominant Fox News management culture, which is rooted in the page three libertarian Republican beliefs of Titan Rupert Murdoch and the network's original mastermind, the now disgraced Roger Ailes. So, what is. I didn't read this part yet. Oh, okay. I don't know what this means. All right, I'm not getting into that. This brings me back to Dreher's anecdote. I have long wondered why Fox News doesn't have much religious reporting. I share that as well. If you look at that, it feels like it keeps that at arm's length, right? And there might be a lot of opinions and theories out there within some folks in some circles about why. However, it's a question. It's something I've noticed as well. They don't embrace that part of their demographic and makeup of supposedly, some of their personalities, like Hannity, like Carlson. Other people, like Gutfeld, are atheists. And Gutfeld's content I enjoy. I enjoy a lot of it. But again, it's only to a degree. Like I enjoy it to a degree, and then it gets off into the Republican GOP talking points, and then it gets tired and contrived, and you know they're talking points, right? Why Fox News doesn't have much religious reporting or cover things including a religious angle, even though many of their loyal viewers are religious. Now I know, now I know, and you should know too. You might recall my telling the story about how the freelancers Fox hired to cover the 2002 Catholic bishops' meeting in Dallas, the first one after the scandal broke, asked me to brief them on who the players were and what the issues were. They took copious notes, but when I told them about the homosexual clerical networks and their roles in the scandal, they told me to stop. Quote, orders from the top of the network, stay away from that stuff, end quote. I was told. I told them that you couldn't understand the scandal without that factor. Maybe so, they said, but we're ordered not to touch it. So let's get into let's talk about this Catholic bishops meeting. 2002 was a weird time for me. I was doing my army thing. I was really disconnected. I was disconnected from church. I was disconnected from news. So this isn't something I know. Yeah, the cross pendants thing, Matt, I don't put much stock into it. I see it and it makes me think, but when it's a TV personality, I don't know. Sport athletes, different story because a lot of athletes are religious. All right, let's see if I can find American Magazine. Let's see. Oh, the Jesuit Review. Yeah, we're not getting into that. I don't trust that at all. Jesuits. Ah, here we go. We'll just do a wrap up on it. What is the Dallas Charter? In 2002, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, the USCCB, instituted the Charter for the Protection of Children and Young People, more commonly known as the Dallas Charter. In it, the U.S. bishops made 4 pledges in their efforts to protect children. They say efforts of protect children, but we know it means 2. 1, we pledge most solemnly to you, God's people, that we will work to our utmost for the protection of children and youth. 2, we pledge that we will devote to this goal the resources and personnel necessary to accomplish it. 3, we pledge that we will do our best to ordain to the diaconate or the deaconate and priesthood and put into positions of trust only those who share this commitment to protecting youth and children. 4, we pledge that we will work toward healing and reconciliation for those sexually abused by clerics. Since then, all U.S. dioceses have been required to put in place the practices outlined in the Charter to guarantee that all parishes and Catholic schools are among the safest places possible for a minor. Further, the Charter is reviewed every 7 years to ensure its practices are of the highest standards. Yeah, well, not sure about that. Not sure how good of a job they're doing. Maybe they got I was hoping they had like a wiki on it. Anyway. So apparently, this is around the time that a lot of these scandals were breaking loose. And apparently, Roger, who I think is somebody who's kind of on the beat for religious goings on, specifically in the Christian spheres, was talking to Fox freelancers about it, and he said, "Look, there's some homosexual activity within the clergy." And they basically said, "Yeah, we're not going anywhere near it." Even though he said, "Look, this is an integral part of what's going on. If you want to understand what's going on, you have to understand what's happening here." They don't care. Thus, Dreher argues that Carlson's forced exit should open the eyes of Fox News-hooked religious and cultural conservatives. He goes on, "Whatever Rupert Murdoch's internal motivations, the fact is, well, to be precise, what I confidently believe to be the truth, that Tucker Carlson gave an extraordinary speech about the theological aspect of the cultural crisis we are enduring. He talked bluntly to an audience at Washington's leading conservative think tank about the fundamentally spiritual nature of the fights we're in, and he encouraged his audience to pray for our country. Several days later, he was fired. Is this part of a larger, older story?" Well, let's back up a second. Let's go over what he said. And let me stop screen. Let me make sure I got audio in this. Okay, share audio. So I'm going to put this. If any of you guys are Tucker fans and haven't listened to this speech, I would encourage you to do so, because I think it's some of his best work from what I've listened to. I haven't listened to the whole thing myself. It's not quite 40 minutes, just over 35. And you can listen to it. But this is really where he gets into it, and this is where I think the meat of what may have gotten him into hot water has to do.
So don't take any theological advice from.
Hang on.
And they write their papers, and may the best papers win. I don't think that's what we're watching now at all. I don't think we're watching a debate over how to get to the best outcome. I think that's completely wrong. And I've come to this conclusion, and I should say at the outset, I'm an Episcopalian, so don't take any theological advice from me, because I don't have any. I grew up in the shallowest faith tradition that's ever been invented. It's not even a Christian religion at this point. I say with shame. But I'm just saying this as an observer of what's going on. There is no way to assess, say, the transgenderist movement with that mindset. Policy papers don't account for it at all. If you have people who are saying, I have an idea, let's castrate the next generation. Let's sexually mutilate children. I'm sorry, that's not a political debate. What? It has nothing to do with politics. What's the outcome we're desiring here? An androgynous population? Is that really what are we arguing for that? No, I don't think anyone could defend that as a positive outcome. But the weight of the government and a lot of corporate interests are behind that. Well, what is that? Well, it's irrational. If you say, well, I think abortion is always bad. Well, I think sometimes it's necessary. That's a debate I'm familiar with. But if you're telling me that abortion is a positive good, what are you saying? Well, you're arguing for child sacrifice, obviously. It's not about a teen girl gets pregnant and what do we do about that? And victims of rape. I get it. Of course I understand that. And I have compassion for everyone involved. But when the Treasury Secretary stands up and says, you know what you can do to help the economy? Get an abortion. Well, that's like an Aztec principle, actually. There's not a society in history that didn't practice human sacrifice. Not one. I checked. Even the Scandinavians, I'm ashamed to say. It wasn't just the Mesoamericans, it was everybody. That's what that is. What's the point of child sacrifice? Well, there's no policy goal entwined with that.
Just going to stop here real quick, just to note. Yes, the Israelites did partake in child sacrifice in direct contradiction to God's law. This is some of the things that we were talking about with Manasseh, with Ahab, and with some of the evil kings of Israel and Judah. They weren't supposed to be doing this. The culture of God strictly forbids this, but they were doing it anyway.
No, that's a theological phenomenon. And that's kind of the point I'm making. None of this makes sense in conventional political terms. When people or crowds of people, or the largest crowd of people at all, which is the federal government, the largest human organization in human history, decide that the goal is to destroy things, destruction for its own sake. Hey, let's tear it down. What you're watching is not a political movement, it's evil. So if you want to assess, and I'll put it in I'll stop with this. I'll put it in non-political, non-specific theological terms, and just say, if you want to know what's evil and what's good, what are the characteristics of those? And by the way, I think the Athenians would have agreed with this. This is not necessarily just a Christian notion. This is kind of I would say, widely agreed upon understanding of good and evil. What are its products? What do these two conditions produce? Well, good is characterized by order, calmness, tranquility, peace, whatever you want to call it, lack of conflict, cleanliness. Cleanliness is next to godliness. It's true, it is. And evil is characterized by their opposites: violence, hate, disorder, division, disorganization, and filth. So if you are all in on the things that produce the latter basket of outcomes, what you're really advocating for is evil. That's just true. I'm not calling for religious war, far from it. I'm merely calling for an acknowledgement of what we're watching, which is not what, and I'm certainly not backing the Republican Party. Ugh. I'm not making a partisan point at all. I'm just noting what's super obvious. Like, those of us who are in our mid-50s are caught in the past in the way that we think about this. One side's like, no, I've got this idea, and we've got this idea, and let's have a debate about our ideas. They don't want a debate. Those ideas won't produce outcomes that any rational person would want under any circumstances. Those are manifestations of some larger force acting upon us. It's just so obvious. It's completely obvious. And I think two things. One, we should say that and stop engaging in these totally fraudulent debates where we are using the terms that we used in 1991 when I started at Heritage, as if maybe, I could just win the debate if I marshaled more facts. I've tried that, doesn't work. And two, maybe we should all take just 10 minutes a day to say a prayer about it. I'm serious. Why not? And I'm saying that to you not as some kind of evangelist. I'm literally saying that to you as an Episcopalian, the Samaritans of our time. I'm coming to you from the most humble and lowly theological position you can. I'm literally an Episcopalian, okay? And even I have concluded it might be worth taking just 10 minutes out of your busy schedule to say a prayer for the future. And I hope you will.
All right, so that was longer than I thought it was supposed to be, but maybe it was because I was listening to it the first time. I was a little bit more wrapped up into it. But again, what he's talking about is we've gone past, political ideology and political rhetoric, and we have entered the realm of what is good and of good and evil. Right? He mentions child sacrifice. He mentions severe, irreversible body mutilation instead of real help for mental health. This is the positions he's talking about, and what he says, and tongue in cheek about the Episcopalians. You've heard me talk about it before with the Episcopal Church and their problems. He's saying even as an Episcopalian, it makes sense that we should be spending time to pray about this. And that touches, and he got positive responses whenever he hit on stuff like this. That touches on a topic that apparently is not all that friendly, or doesn't touch friendly ears when Rupert Murdoch hears it. So furthermore, we'll go down to, apparently Glenn Beck sent a tweet. Glenn Beck might be a Mormon, and again, there's significant theological differences between actual Christians and Mormons. They're not the same, but Mormons do believe in God in a different way. It's different, but Glenn Beck's very faith-filled in his Mormon faith. It's become very much a part of him ever since he converted to it years ago, before he took off as a radio personality. Anyway, Glenn Beck says, when I was at Fox News, I was told not to use the word God on the air. They counted how many times I disobeyed. I don't know if Tucker Carlson's speech about God and prayer was the final straw, but I have a feeling it deeply bothered Rupert Murdoch. Which, again, believing something that when Glenn Beck says something, I always pause to go, does this make sense? Does this make sense? Because sometimes he's right about stuff. Sometimes he's way, way out in left field. But the thing is, he's not the first person to say that. And these are stories that are coming out from people who have been in that sphere. Anyway, so as you would expect, this brings us to the much discussed Vanity Fair feature that ran with a headline proclaiming Tucker Carlson's prayer talk may have led to Fox News ouster. That stuff freaks Rupert out. And that's the name of the title. I know, it's long. It's like a My Chemical Romance song. Yes, by all means, note the presence of the dangerous words may have in that headline. Yes, because may mean it doesn't mean it's not true at all, or it could mean we're passively saying yes, this definitely happened. You don't know, right? You don't know where they're going in. There are all kinds of theories about the Carlson exit, and the God talk angle is only one of them. Very true. Hold that thought, because we will return to the claims in a major New York Times story, which seems to have lots of info from Fox News leaders. The key to the Vanity Fair story, in my opinion, is that that reporter Gabrielle Sherman's work appears to be rooted in a source from his ongoing research about Rupert Murdoch, as opposed to new reporting about Carlson. So he's pulling from stuff that he has been researching. And the thing is, he's not the first person to say that. And this is these are stories that are coming out from people who have been in that sphere. Anyway, so as you would expect, this brings us to the much discussed Vanity Fair feature that ran with a headline proclaiming Tucker Carlson's prayer talk may have led to Fox News ouster. That stuff freaks Rupert Murdoch out. Which, again, So the may have gets a little bit firmer. Possibly. It's Vanity Fair. Again, it's a journalist and it's Vanity Fair. What do we have? This brings us to two critical passages in the online article at Vanity Fair, which is not known as a religious right publication. Here we go. So we're jumping all over the place with this. According to the source, Fox Court chair Rupert Murdoch removed Carlson over remarks Carlson made during a speech at the Heritage Foundation's 50th anniversary gala on Friday night. Carlson laced his speech with religious overtones that even Murdoch found too extreme. All right. Again, I haven't listened to the whole speech. But what about that speech seemed overly zealous? What about what he mentioned? Just taking 10 minutes to pray, talking about good and evil, making fun of his own Episcopal faith as theologically shallow. These aren't the words of a zealot, right? These are the words of a guy trying to come to terms with insanity going on in the world, while at the same time the faith that he has, and thinking that he doesn't have enough. He should have more. And he wants people to come together and be good. Carlson, and so it says even Murdoch found too extreme. That makes it sound way worse than it actually is. Carlson told the Heritage audience that national politics had become a Manichean. I don't know how you pronounce that. Battle between good and evil. I don't know what that word is. Carlson said that people advocating for transgender rights and DEI programs want to destroy America and that they cannot be persuaded with facts. But here we go. The answer Carlson suggested was prayer. I have concluded it might be worth taking just 10 minutes out of your busy schedule to say a prayer for the future, and I hope you will, he said. That stuff freaks Rupert out. He doesn't like all the spiritual talk. Oh, all the spiritual talk. Manchin. Oh, like the senator from West Virginia, Nernath? Manchin? Like Lear? Doesn't like all the spiritual talk. The spiritual talk. There were, again, we go right down the list. It's got religious overtones and themes and a couple of mentions in his speech, but this is hardly a bunch of spiritual talk. Then he jumps down a few lines. Rupert Murdoch was perhaps unnerved by Carlson's messianism because it echoed the end times worldview of Murdoch's ex-fiancée, Anne Leslie Smith, the source said. Ex-fiancée. Now, I was thinking maybe this is something from a long time ago. Apparently, this is very recent. And I'm thinking, Murdoch's in his 90s. Who is this lady? Oh, she's 66 years old. Gosh, he looks like a prune. I mean, he's 90, but man. Whatever. It's always weird when I see that. 66-year-old former dental hygienist. Police chaplain? Stop there. Anne Leslie Smith, the source said, in my May cover story, I reported that Murdoch and Smith called off their 2-week engagement because Smith had told people Carlson was, quote, a messenger from God, end quote. Murdoch has seen Carlson and Smith discuss religion firsthand. In late March, Carlson had dinner at Murdoch's Bel Air vineyard with Murdoch and Smith, according to the source. During dinner, Smith pulled out a Bible and started reading passages from the book of Exodus. The source said, Rupert just sat there and stared. Well, I mean, 90-year-olds tend to do that. The source, Rupert just sat there and stared, the source said. A few days after the dinner, Murdoch and Smith called off the wedding. By taking Carlson off the air, Murdoch was also taking away his ex's favorite show. I mean, that would look, that's a bit of a stretch. But man, you want to talk about spitefulness or cutting your nose off to spite yourself? Dude, Murdoch's stock is tumbling after this. Smith did not respond to a request for comment. She's probably not going to. The 92-year-old mogul's broken engagement is part of a string of erratic decisions he has made of late that raises questions about Murdoch's leadership of his media empire. And if you think that he's got kids waiting in the wings to take over and repair this, think again. His kids are liberals. Kids are huge liberals, and if they don't have any religion in them, they don't want any of that stuff. MR, I thought you were kind of behind. As Dreer noted, and I have my own reasons for agreeing, I'm sure you do, Terry, Fox News has never seemed all that interested in doing journalism work, as opposed to punching the occasional quote or the occasional war on Christmas culture wars button, yes, about news events and trends linked to religion, cultural, and moral beliefs and questions. Much like the late Rush Limbaugh, another libertarian superstar in the Bill O'Reilly mold, the leaders at Fox News have to be sitting on mountains of audience research, noting the huge role that conservative religious believers have played in their success. But that doesn't mean that Fox News leaders at the highest possible levels believe that religious faith is all that important. I'm sure they don't. I'm just going to note here. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Here we go. So I'm going to shill some Limbaugh here because I think this is important. This was something I thought I liked, and it's my show, so I'm going to do it. When they talk about Rush didn't talk about faith a whole lot, except for the fact that, he opened this show. One of his slogans was talent on loan from God, a constant reminder to everybody that he understood that his blessings came from the man above. I think he wanted to keep kind of that, I don't want to say muted, but subdued, right? Some opacity here. With his faith, so that people who maybe didn't share his faith could also pick up the message, the political message that he was saying. So,
point in all of this today is gratitude.
Wait. All right. There we go.
Dude, my point in everything today that I share with you about this is to say thanks and to tell everybody involved how much I love you from the bottom of a sizable and growing and still beating heart. I wasn't expected to be alive today. You have an expiration date. A lot of people never get told that, and so they don't face life this way. I've learned what love really is during this.
important.
Oh, of course, Fox News can't be counted on. They took all the God stuff out of there. Well, make my point, Fox. Do this some more. Golly, dead. Ah. Hang on.
A yearly tradition and my ongoing attempts to thank everybody in the audience, all of you, for everything you mean to me. That last call, that's reminds me how much I love all of you, how much I so appreciate everything you've meant to me and my family. You don't have any idea how. I know so many people think this program has changed their lives for the better. You have no idea what you all have meant to me and my family. The day is going to come, folks, where I'm not going to be able to do this. I don't know when that is. I want to be able to do it for as long as I want to do it. But the day will come where I'm not going to be able to. And I want you to understand that even when the day comes, I'd like to be here. Because I have this sense of needing to constantly show my appreciation for all that you have done and meant to me. So I hope you all have a great Christmas, a great New Year. And I hope that the things that are in store for all of us in the coming year are certainly better than what we have endured in 2020. I don't know too many people have enjoyed 2020. Probably some sickos out there who have, but 2021 has to be better. We're going to try to make it that way here at the EIB network. Again, folks, thank you so much. I wish there were a way to say it other than thank you.
Daggone it, this isn't the right one. All right, well, let's see if I can just read it. Matt, I saw that earlier. I'm going to read it in a minute. Crap, I can't find it. Oh well, I'm not gonna hold the show up on this. But I was listening to it because I would from time to time when he said it, and it really caught me short because again, it was not something he would talk out would bring up all the time, but you could definitely feel it in a lot of his commentary came from that place, and a lot of it came from um that upbringing that he had as well. But when he talks about how much his diagnosis had brought him closer to God and dealing with that. Because I think that he had Rush, at least on behind the mic, was the eternal optimist. Even when he was warning about things. And I see a lot of that in Carlson as well. There's a little bit of doom and gloom in Carlson. Of course, Carlson's reporting, he's a little bit of a different era, right? Rush started this part of his personality, and this was part of his being in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s when things seemed to make a whole lot more sense. It never felt like this was an ongoing ideological battle and not something that was um, a legitimate battle between good and evil. Like he would draw those lines sometimes about it, but he never made it say like we're gone, right? We have gone the way of Manasseh and Joab and Ahab and stuff like that. Tucker came up in the meme wars of 2016, around the meme wars of 2016, and society's in a much different place. So I think he touches on that from time to time. But again, he's also very optimistic. He brings that point, and I think a lot of people appreciate that. And I think that if you have good faith, well-seated faith, that even though you can look at the worst coming and still be optimistic, because the worst that's coming to us, and this is my hope that all of you guys will take away from this. All right. I don't know how you guys feel about yourselves, feel about the world around you, if you guys are depressed, if you guys are happy, or anything. If you're on this show and you're listening, if you believe in God, or if you want to believe in God, whatever happens in this life that is bad and terrible, that is difficult, that is hurtful, that is tragic, that's heart-wrenching, and I've seen some of it in my life and been blessed to avoid it, a lot of it. Some of the stuff is unfathomably scary. Some of the stuff that is in the world is unfathomably violent, wrong, evil, all that stuff. We try to protect ourselves and our children and the rest of our families from that, but it is out there. But no matter all of those things, all the things that Satan can throw at us, he can't touch us in heaven. And that's part of why that's part of the point of him being cast out. It doesn't exist there. Heaven isn't a place for that. And by missing that, there is that peace. So there's always strength. So always, if you can, derive strength from that knowledge. Put a smile on your face. Help it bring a smile to your face. Help it cultivate determination in you to do the right thing, to do what you need to do, to provide, to be responsible, to obey God, to do all these things. Help it to bring heart when things seem bad. Because you can rant and rave at a chalkboard like Glenn Beck does, or you can be a beacon of hope for people who can look at you no matter what you're going through and understand there is peace. There's peace about it, about this person. And people get hope when they see that. And I want you guys to do that. And there might be times, I don't know how long this stream will ever, I don't have any any intentions of quitting this, but I have no idea how long this stream will last or what things will happen in my life that may be good or bad. But the worst things happening, I hope I can still provide a good, joyful attitude and message to all of you guys, right? Just as I would to my family. And hopefully that doesn't happen, right? I'm still showing that I'm active. Is everybody still getting this? Okay, never mind. that's my goal for things in life. And again, that's why I think Job is such an important book for us to read and lean on when times are tough. And I say that, and maybe I'm not giving enough respect to the Gospels. I should, right? Because Christ's words should be all that we need. But Job provides a tangible instance where a man went through an awful lot and he was sad. But he stayed faithful to God, and he stayed faithful to God for the most part, and he came out ahead in the end. And we'll talk about more about that later. Anyway. So yeah, I mean, if you watch Fox News, and I think it was Matt Felty or somebody else had mentioned it, and maybe I should catch up, and I'll take this point to catch up with chats. But said that this is they've noticed the same thing. MR said I walked in upstairs, had to walk down 3 sets in a spiral pattern for the right side for the first floor, and it was 6 sets. There you go. MR was there. You did. You had to walk downstairs when you got there. Nico says, if Tucker is fired for his Christian faith, Fox is now anti-Christian. How far have we fallen? Lol. There's a couple of directions you can go with that. I don't think Fox keeps Christianity at arm's length. Much like other neocon publications will do. The establishment right. For different reasons, maybe. I don't know, but it just seems to be that's what they do. We're apparently not an agreeable bunch. Matt Felty, most of the ladies wear cross pendants, but yeah, not a bunch of reporting on religious matters on Fox. Nernand says, Nico, if you have a non-MSM or give message, you have to build your own way to get the message out and not get stomped. Watch out for their tricks. MR, I take it you did not know that's who the merch ladies were. Nico said, damn, how sad is that the bishops of the church have to do a charter not to mess with kids? I mean, what is protect children? From what? The bishops? There is scripture on this, right? It involves doing this, and then if you're going to screw around with the youth, you might as well just sink to the bottom of the ocean. That comes from Christ, by the way, guys. Don't mess with kids, right? But anytime, and then this is not, and again, I've talked about this before, the Catholics get more heat on them about their scandals, and because it's good, the media loves to punch at the religion of Christianity. They love to punch at the faith. They love to thumb their nose at God and say, look, this is how your people behave. And they also like to deflect from the fact that your kid is more susceptible to harm at public school by a wide margin. And most of y'all came here from the Knicks stream, so I know so I know y'all were there for that episode, and y'all know that we talked about it. And if you've listened to Nick, you've heard that as well. MR, no, I haven't seen Fish Take. I heard, I think the night of the show was the night that they got swatted, I think. Anyway. But going back to Nico and what you said about the bishops. Anytime you have people being put in charge, in care of innocent people or soft targets, be it kids or women, or specifically women who are vulnerable, any type of vulnerability, it is going to attract bad actors, right? And you can't keep all the bad actors from getting out, especially the larger the bureaucracy, the harder it is. And there is no bigger bureaucracy in Christianity than the Catholic Church. There isn't. It's not even close. So they are going to struggle with this. So the charter was more to put it to make sure that this is a priority, an active priority, because I don't think they were taking it that seriously. They should have been. We should always. This isn't a new thing. This is again, child sacrifice was going on in forever, right? We know kids are vulnerable. We've known for centuries, for millennia, kids are vulnerable. It is our directive as family, as a community, as faith, as a congregation, as all these things to protect them. But I think a lot of people were more worried about the brand. And there were some people working within Jesuits who wanted to continue that practice. And it's hard to fight that, unfortunately. Mr. said, "This is well said. I've never watched a lot of Tucker, but I am amazed how articulate he is uninterrupted." Oh, his monologues are amazing. His monologues are great. I enjoy them. I don't usually watch his show, but his show is on in this household because my father-in-law watches it almost every night, or he did watch it until this happened. But the one thing you can count on in this house is that my father-in-law was going to be listening to Rush on the radio, and he was going to watch Tucker, at least the beginning of Tucker, at 8 o'clock every night. And so, I'm doing other things. I'm not watching the Tucker Carlson show, but I'm usually messing with the kids or whatever. But you normally stop for 10 minutes, or I catch it on a replay whenever I see it, or something like that that comes on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, where he's got his monologues, and they're fun. They're good to listen to. They're good content, in my opinion. I like it. I don't agree with everything, and I think his laugh it really sounds forced. It really sounds put on. His laugh sounds about as genuine as Sean Hannity's normal speaking voice. But yes, I'm a fan. Felty said Beck has a good interview with author John Kahn, Return of the Gods, that posted recently. It's about war with principalities, like Tucker was discussing at Heritage. Be interesting. I haven't listened to Beck in a long time. Here it is. MR had it. MR said it. I knew this was Fox 5. Sanitary faith. Here's the thing, and I when you said that, and that crossed my mind, when you said it like that, I started thinking, sanitary faith. The one thing we talk about with the left is with communism or whatever, it doesn't have room for religion. It doesn't have room for God. There's only the state. Y'all ever thought that maybe the right has people who feel the same way? What flavor of right wing and right wing ideology doesn't have space for God, for faith, because there's only room for the state? Don't know. You make that call. To me, it's just like you feel it. You can feel it when you're around it. And somebody says something like, that's not really comfortable with my faith. Faith always trumps politics. God's commandments always trump your political ideology. Always. Always. God's commandments trump everything. And Mar says, makes sense to me, having watched You said you made this comment, Elmar. I was like, how far behind is he? The MCR song. Felty said Tucker was much more succinct and honest. Seems like he was just asking, praying for discernment and clarity amid confusion. Exactly. It wasn't that over the top at all. It's just like it came up and it seemed natural. And he probably planned that speech. But again, there wasn't anything overbearing about it. And then you follow up, what's the messianic message from Tucker in the speech? I don't know. Pray? Good night. Look, you got to remember, this is Vanity Fair, which doesn't like Christianity, talking about Rupert Murdoch, who doesn't like Christianity. So any bit of Christian talk, apparently, is messianic. It's Jesus freak, right? So who knows? Rewrite of OAN earlier chat. I don't know where you're going with that. MR said, never watched Rush. I see him rubbing off on Nick. I mean, Nick and I are the same age. He's a little bit older than me. But, I mean, this is what our parents listened to when we were growing up. When we were coming of age in the late 80s and early 90s, he was a superstar. He was bigger than Carlson. But he didn't have a television platform. He did it all on radio because he was on when people were working and people were listening. And TV was still a big thing, but it wasn't as big a thing. He did have a television show for a little bit, and he did have a spot on ESPN, and then he got kicked off because of Donovan McNabb. And Mark said, I loved his first ever Tucker Carlson interview where he just yells at the professor over safe spaces. I don't like I don't like it when people yell at people, but my favorite thing is Tucker Carlson's facial reactions. They're memes. They are so memeable. They're like, he's like, because we've all felt like we need to give that facial reaction when somebody says something incredibly dumb and you just don't have a response to it because you're like, how is this person remembering how to breathe? They're out there. And Mr. Scott J87, yes, flawed man of God. That's my handle on Twitter. I said, no, I didn't, but I feel bad. But good for Nick, yeah. She's super sweet, too. So, they're great. So did you see the clip of Tucker calling out that ELCA pastor giving a sermon on transgenderism? No, but I would like to. And you can, if you want to share it with me in a DM or tag me in it on Twitter, I would be happy to watch it. Don't forget to join Flawed's Templars. Is that the... Geez, I haven't even checked my locals page site lately. When I switched computers, all my bookmarks got... And I'm a boomer about my passwords, so I haven't messed with that. I haven't messed with that. I need to get back on there. I've got on Discord. I got on here. I got back on Twitter. Today I had to sign into Twitter on my computer for the first time. Oh, it's such a pain, right? It's easy when it's all saved on the phone. But there you go. Where was I at? And I'm and umming because I'm ADHDing out. All right. Let's get back to the stream. Let's get back to the topic at hand. All right. You can make a case that Murdoch and his core disciples are about as comfortable with conservative forms of religious faith as well lifestyle liberal folks at Rolling Stone. Apparently they did a article called "What the Hell? Satan Fired Tucker Carlson," right-wing Christians say. No, they hate it. Glenn Greenwald will analyze Tucker's abrupt departure from Fox and the severe ideological splits it reflects within the GOP and on the U.S. right, debates utterly absent from the lockstep liberal left, plus AOC censorship demands. As we covered on tonight's show, Tucker did something after the 2020 election that no primetime CNN or MSNBC host would ever have the courage to do. Say things they know would enrage their viewers. He said Sidney Powell had no evidence for her claims. He did say that. All that said, it is, of course, important to dig into that major New York Times piece that ran with this headline. On the eve of trial, discovery of Carlson's text sets off crisis atop Fox. Thanks for the follow, Mr. Scott. The theory here, which is totally plausible, is that Carlson's exit was in part caused by evidence that emerged in prep work for the lawsuits linked to Fox News commentaries about rumored fraud linked to Dominion voting machines. Read the following very carefully. All right, let's read it very carefully. It is notable that even when compared with the extreme rhetoric Mr. Carlson was allowed to use on air, the messages released publicly had the ability to shock. In one, he referred to the lawyer Sidney Powell, a major proponent of the debunked theory that the Dominion machine switched votes, with a crude and misogynistic slur. Amid the cachet, I'm sorry, folks. Let me apologize. I said cachet. Amid the cache of redacted messages, and one in which he used a similar vulgarity to describe a senior Fox News executive. Nick talked about that, and I agree. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about any of that. One person briefed on the contents of the redacted material said one of the messages was particularly offensive, adding to the concern at the top of the company. The Times has not seen the contents of the message. Dominion lawyers plan to press the judge about using the contents of the redacted messages in their questioning of Mr. Carlson. The lawyers prep dozens of potential questions for the host, along with hypothetical rejoinders they thought Mr. Carlson might use to deflect the toughest of them. And they plan to pin him down on the ones that were most demeaning towards women. Because, of course, anyone who knows anything about Carlson knows that his sense of humor, this is common in newsrooms, I have found, is blunt and at times nasty. Just want to remind everybody, this guy is a friend of David French. However, it appears that accusations against Carlson focus on language as opposed to the abusive sexual behavior seen in earlier Fox News scandals. It will be important to see what other on-the-record information emerges. Back to the Times. It is interesting to note that Carlson was furious with A, Fox News executive, not really, and B, one of the siren voices in the stolen election conspiracy theory choir at the heart of the lawsuit. Also not really. None of that is interesting. It's entirely plausible. A lot of people felt that way, myself included. Carlson had denounced Powell on the air for producing zero evidence to support her claims. What will happen now? Fox News pushed Carlson off the air. Here we go, Nico. Fox News pushed Carlson off the air, but did not toss out his contract, wanting to prevent him from switching to another competitive platform. That issue will almost certainly end up in court, and the evidence that surfaces will be both brutal and fascinating. Fox News executives love to trash superstars that they have forced out the door. Meanwhile, Carlson released a Twitter video that had 70 million viewers. Last time I checked, roughly 10 plus times the numbers of the show Fox News is quickly subbed for his now dead program. Carlson recently interviewed Elon Musk. Think about that potential partnership. Also here, Terry Mattingly is also obsessed with Tesla. He owns a Tesla, and he is your quintessential Tesla owner, obsessed with it. It's like people who do CrossFit. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Stay tuned. It's hard to imagine Carlson remaining silent. #duh. Enjoy the podcast and please pass along to others. I haven't read Rod Dreher's content, but a lot of stuff he put in here was pretty good. So if you're going to follow this link, which I guess I'm going to put in which I guess I'll put in here. I'm sure I get a copyright claim for all this stuff. Don't care. Edit. Well, let me edit. Cancel. No. I can add it to YouTube. Well, I guess Facebook isn't getting it. Thanks, MR. I'm not particularly. I just want to save the changes. Okay, it's being dumb, so I'll do it later, but I'll copy that. Ooh, maybe I can go in the back door. Boom. On it. Save. Take that, StreamYard. Anyway, all right. So that's the thing with Carlson. And I think that this broadcast particularly, yes, I am wearing shorts and a hoodie. It's just that kind of day. Cold rain, and it's getting warmer outside. I think that none of this should really come as a surprise if you're not paying attention. That even if you're not paying attention, it should say, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." Now that I think about it, I noticed that stuff too. Fox News is part of that neocon movement. MR, you mentioned Hitler. I think where I ended up going with this is, your faith needs to be the ideology of fiscal conservatism. Fiscal conservatism and some of the social conservatism that they are. Basically with the neocons, Warhawks, all this, and just basically whatever the GOP is doing needs to be where you put your faith, because there are times where the GOP is at odds with that, especially when they're as spineless as they are. They're politicians. They want you to worship them. They want you to put your faith in them. They want you to believe them. Scripture will tell you, don't do that ever. You are meant to be a law-abiding citizen to a degree, to the point where it doesn't impede on your practice of your religion, of the faith of Christianity, but otherwise law-abiding citizen. But there are plenty of passages where it is warning you not to trust these knuckleheads, and we are right in the midst of a lot of it. The reason why the Israelites were sent into exile was because of politicians, because of bad leaders. We have our fair share. In fact, one can argue right now, who is a good leader in America that's in DC, that's on Capitol Hill right now? Who's a good leader that's in your state legislator or your governor? Who's a good leader that's in your local county or city council, supervisors, school board, any of that stuff? Are any of these people good leaders? On the local stuff, on the statewide stuff, I'll defer to y'all. But it's something worth thinking about, because one of the things that we seem to have is a deficit in good leaders, except for one: God. who has a track record, 100% track record of keeping his promises and not letting us down, no matter what. Who has established great rules for us. And there you have it. All right. Matt Felty said, I wonder if he'll have wiggle room on Twitter as no one was anticipating Spaces when the lawyers were doing his contract. I don't know. Who knows what the contract says? He might be able to do. I was going to say, well, maybe he'll team up with Crowder. He ain't teaming up with Crowder right now. But he could definitely launch his own, like the EIB network. Going to launch his own media group. Be like the Daily Wire. Andrew Breitbart. The Blaze. Carlson is bigger than Beck. He can do things better than the Blaze. Anyway. All right, guys. Over an hour and a half. Good content. It's a good off-topic stuff. I thought it was relevant. You guys were given a lot of good commentary on that. And so I'm going to close this out. Let's see if my buddy's on broadcasting. I'm going to move over to Blaine. Seems like he's got people on. And we'll talk about that kind of stuff there. I might move over to there. Daily Puke. Indeed. But so you're talking about other media companies that have been started by folks. Well, I take that back. I think there was a lot of outside backing for Daily Wire. So maybe I'm wrong. Oh, okay. Your studio stuff keeps attracting messages. I took one down to clarify rewrite and had an accidental send on my tablet in between. Didn't mean to confuse you tonight. That's all right. That's no problem at all. But if you have something you don't want me to read, go back and say, hey, don't read what I wrote above, and maybe I'll catch it. That's right. Texas oil billionaires. What's his face? Backing Daily Wire. Yeah. But anyway, all right. So that'll conclude our discussions tonight. We're going to go into the weekend. Remember, Mondays, don't stream. Got some, unless we rain out. If this rain continues this weekend, I don't know if the fields might not be playable. So I won't be streaming Monday, probably. But Tuesday, be back at it. Be right back at it. And in the meantime, I want you guys to have a great, productive, safe, relaxing, insert good adjective here weekend. And I look forward to seeing you guys. Viewership was down this week, even though subscribers were up. I was talking to my wife about this evening. Going into the Philly trip, I had two streams at over 50 views, and I was averaging about 30 views per episode. This week they've all been, except for one, have all been under 20. One got to 22. So I just need to get back in the swing of things and get you guys back in the habit of coming in, so we can keep this up. If you like this show, like, subscribe, and share. I don't ask for super chats. I don't need any of that. I just want the community to grow. I want more impact. You guys are great. You do a lot of stuff that's helpful just by talking. But if you're looking to go the extra mile, again, spread the word. Word of mouth is great. But I'll see you guys all on Tuesday, unless you go over to Blaine's stream, in which case you might see me momentarily. So with that said, everybody have a great, so to MR, Matt. Mr. Scott. Where's Nernaeth on here? Nernaeth. Nico. I assume Emmanuel Osorio is traveling, so safe travels, my man. And Dresden. You guys take it have a great weekend. Thank you for contributing to the show. All the folks who were just listening, thank you for your attention. Those guys catching me on the replay. Hey guys, glad I meant enough that you wanted to catch up. Tuesday we're back at it. Have a great evening. Have a good night, and God bless.